So recently, the Marvel Legends team revealed that they are at last going to give us a Rachel Summers action figure, and this was met with delight from the action figure collecting community, at least those of us who are building Excalibur. But a lot of other people might think, well, why have people been so desperate to get a Rachel Summers action figure? Well, I'm going to tell you why right now. So to say that Rachel Summers' history is complicated is a little bit of an understatement, but I'm going to do my best to give you the absolute essential facts, because it involves time traveling, alternate realities, doppelgangers, power switches, mojo verses, and all sorts of different brain-twisting storylines. But I'm going to try and straighten this out as best I can do. She's essentially the daughter of Cyclops and Phoenix, but also only in a certain reality. She kind of possesses the powers of the Phoenix, but also not exactly. There's a whole smorgasbord of about 40 years worth of stories to catch up on. So let's not stand on ceremony, Mr. Wayne. Let's start at the beginning of Rachel Summers' story. So this story kicks off in the Days of Future Past timeline, right before things get really bad. In that world, Cyclops and Phoenix have a daughter. And this time, unlike in our reality, where the Phoenix Force impersonated Jean Grey and kind of sacrificed itself in her place, this Jean Grey actually was the Phoenix, but she never became the Dark Phoenix. It never got that bad. So there was no doppelganger type situation. But eventually, her and Scott had a child, and that was Rachel Summers. And Rachel, being the daughter of Jean Grey, actually inherited some of the Phoenix powers and the Phoenix Force. Not as powerful as her mother, but she still possessed some of that cosmic energy. So in this reality, Rachel is a member of the Xavier School, and that's where she forms a close connection with the son of Sue Storm and Reed Richards, Franklin Richards, who himself is a mutant, and he's attending the Xavier Academy or school, and together they join the New Mutants. So at this point, everything's coming up roses. So in our timeline, the New Mutants were able to prevent the assassination of Senator Robert Kelly. However, in the Days of Future Past timeline, that was one of the big triggering events that sent that reality into the Sentinel hellscape that we come to know and love. So the death of Senator Kelly led to a big bad president being elected who had a hardcore anti-mutant approach, and of course things got very dark very quickly. Jean Grey, Rachel's mother, was killed in an atom bomb explosion that was triggered by Mastermind, so once again he's proving to be a thorn in the side of the X-Men. So of course the Mutant Registration Act kicks off, but the Sentinels, as AI will often tend to do, decides that the best way to protect the human race is to completely take over the United States. So over the next few years, the Sentinels either capture or completely take out and eliminate not only mutants, but any superpowered person that might be able to stand in their way. Now this is where Rachel's story gets really dark, because of course the Xavier Mansion is attacked, and pretty much everyone is wiped out besides Rachel Summers, who gets her powers dampened and she's captured, all for the purpose of being experimented on by Ahab. Ahab and Harpoon are two characters I keep on confusing because, you know, they're kind of Moby Dick type themed. But Ahab, with one leg and a bad attitude, decides to turn Rachel Summers into one of his many hounds who he uses to track and capture mutants, but more details on that later. So the Hound program is kind of like Weapon X in a way, at least in how they turn normal people into mindless killing machines. So it's basically a whole lot of horrible, awful mental torture and manipulation. So Ahab is just ripping apart Rachel Summers' brain and dehumanizing her into this feral kind of creature. He tattoos her face and makes her wear a leash so that she just gets this animalistic kind of outlook on life, and she can be used as a predator to track down other mutants. Unfortunately for Ahab, Rachel Summers is that strong mentally and physically that eventually during the torture sessions that he puts her through, she's able to finally snap and break away from his control and badly scars him and messes him up while she's escaping, so she gets a small measure of revenge. So having freed herself, Rachel Summers is then able to go and join the remnants of the X-Men, such as the older version of Wolverine, Kate Pryde, Magneto, and she becomes one of the main parts of the Resistance in the Days of Future Past timeline. So having joined up with the kind of X-Men resistance, Rachel is reunited with Franklin Richards. So that's kind of lovely, actually. These star-crossed lovers are brought back together, and just in time for the big act to try and undo Days of Future Past, it's Rachel Summers who uses her psychic abilities to transport the mind of Kitty Pryde back in time to try and undo everything that's happened. Now, this is where it gets really confusing. So, you know that scene in Avengers Endgame where they're talking about time travel rules, and is it Back to the Future? Is it Terminator? What rules are we using here? This is kind of MCU rules, I think, because even though Kate goes back in time and she can prevent the assassination of Senator Kelly, that creates a different timeline, and still the Days of Future Past timeline is happening the way that it is happening. So, not what they were hoping for, but that's time travel for you. So Rachel Summers then decides to go back in time psychically herself to see what happened and how she could maybe fix it. So while back in time, and forgive me for the confusion, but oh boy, it is confusing, Rachel psychically connects with her mother, Jean Grey, who wasn't her mother in that timeline. And Jean Grey is able to kind of shunt her back into the Days of Future Past timeline. But in doing so, she also gives her some of the Phoenix power as well. So she has this within her that she's able to call upon when needed. So there's no danger of it becoming like Dark Phoenix, at least at this point. But it is able to be almost like a Shazam type, Captain Marvel sort of thing, where she can call upon this power, which she has to do when she's imprisoned by Nimrod and has to fight for her life. And eventually she calls on the power of the Phoenix. And did I say things got complicated before? Because now things are going to get more complicated. So when she called upon the Phoenix Force while battling Nimrod, that actually catapulted her back in time to our 616 reality. So in the 616 now, this is our timeline where Jean had died at the end of the Dark Phoenix saga. But of course, it wasn't Jean, it was the Phoenix itself, but that hadn't been revealed yet. So Rachel just sees that her mother has passed away under the gloomy cloud of being the Dark Phoenix. So she decides to take on the mantle of Phoenix from her mother in order to kind of rehabilitate her name. One nice thing that gave Rachel a bit of extra confidence was she had this crystal that I think was made by Lilandra and the Shi'ar that contained Jean's sort of essence, or like the thumbprint of her mind. So Rachel is able to feel some of these things that her mother has felt and experience some of her history and memories, which gives her the confidence to kind of take up the mantle of Phoenix in her name. So Rachel is now a part of the X-Men, but she's not as sound of mind as she would like to be, because all of this hound training is still kind of in her head and it's messing with her. So she can be quite erratic and she can go feral on occasion and get a little bit savage, a bit of a Wolverine kind of thing. She's been so messed up that it's going to take time for her to fully become herself again. So they have this mission where they have to go and rescue Banshee, and so she needs to use her hound training to once again track down a mutant, which of course brings back all of these sense memories that are really hard for her to deal with. So she does have a good run with the X-Men, but it's not without incident. There's one storyline in Asgard where she kind of fully takes on the look of the Phoenix, and Cyclops can't help but think, this is not a good look. And also she has this kind of running feud with Selene, who of course has her connections to Jean Grey and the Hellfire Club. And one time their fight gets so vicious and savage that Rachel is about to kill her, and Wolverine has to step in and stop her from doing so. And in doing so, Wolverine almost kills her. There's a lot of almost killing going on, but it basically gets very savage. So everything with Rachel Summers, like, she's doing her best and she's a great asset for the team, but also, like, it's always tense. It's like having that friend who you know is like, oh, they're really good fun to go out with, but hopefully they're just not going to kick off at any moment, you know? Now I'm just finally going to wrap this up by taking her story up to when she joins Excalibur, because that's the set of Marvel Legends that people have been wanting to put together for the longest time. So Rachel starts to acquiesce to her time with the X-Men, and she becomes a valuable member of the team and basically settles into life in the 616. Until she's kidnapped by Mojo and Spiral and imprisoned in Mojo World. I didn't know that the impetus for her joining Excalibur was a Mojo storyline, but there we go. So it comes down to Nightcrawler and Shadowcat to rescue her from Mojoverse, and when they do, they form this bond, which is always kind of meant to be considering how tight she was with Shadowcat in the Days of Future Past timeline. So now, Rachel, Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler then join up with Captain Britain and Megan, and they form Excalibur over in England. So Rachel finally finds what I feel is like her home and her family with Excalibur, and it fits her like a glove. She does really, really well in this setting with this team, and she's kind of off to the races. So this is where we know her. At least this is how I know Rachel, in her red costume with the spikes, with the Phoenix power. That's my Rachel Summers. So just to kind of wrap up this section of her life, there's a fun little story with Galactus, and then we'll cut it off there, because otherwise I'm going to be here giving you 30 more years worth of Rachel storylines, because they actually use her a heck of a lot in Marvel Comics. So this final one just shows how powerful Rachel Summers can be when Galactus comes a-calling to Earth. He sends his herald down to inform her and Excalibur that Galactus wants the power of the Phoenix for himself. Not in a malevolent kind of way, because that's not Galactus's gig. He's not looking to rule the world, but he's all about the balance of nature and power, and he's worried that this little puny human should not be possessing this Phoenix force. Unfortunately, he underestimates just how adept she is at using it. So first of all, Rachel pinky flicks the herald across the galaxy, so Galactus is like, fine, Thanos style, I'll do it myself. And they have a huge big throwdown across the cosmos. And eventually the fight itself pretty much ends in what I would say is a no-score draw, where both Galactus and Rachel realize that there's no way of either one defeating the other without most likely releasing so much power and energy that they would both be wiped out. So I guess they agreed to just walk away. You know, it's like a fight outside a pub, or in a car park. It's like, all right, lads, walk away, leave it. All right, calm down. And folks, that does it for my very quick history on the prehistory of Rachel Summers. Of course, like with any Marvel character, we could go on and on, but there's only so much time in the day, and I wouldn't expect you to be watching a 3-hour Rachel Summers history video. Or maybe you'd like to. If you would, let me know. I mean, are these short form videos the best way of doing it, or would you like a super deep dive? Because I can do that if you want to hear it. But guys, what do you think about Rachel Summers? Are you excited to pick up the action figure? Comment below and let me know. And if you enjoyed this episode, then maybe you want to support the channel by giving a little thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Or if you wanted to go one step beyond, you could always get a Model Behavior channel membership, which that helps me have more time to make more videos. So who would you like to hear a deep dive on as well? And yeah, put that in the comments and I'll see if I can get onto it. And until next time, keep displaying model behavior.
Up a coffee.